The film opens not with a bang, but with a grim, private ritual. A man sits at a lone table, the silence around him as heavy as his past. He methodically lines up 3 shot glasses. One remains empty, a hollow promise of nothing. The second holds a single bullet, its brass casing gleaming dully. The third, 2 bullets clinking together. He begins reciting names, a slow, painful roll call of fallen comrades from a war that never left him. Each name is a ghost, a weight added to the scale. The final tally lands decisively on the glass containing the twin bullets. Without flinching, he downs the whiskey in one burning gulp, then loads the 2 bullets into the cylinder of his revolver. The odds are now a 1 in 3 game of Russian roulette. He places the barrel against his temple. The click of the hammer falling on an empty chamber echoes in the stillness. Whether it's luck or a form of divine punishment, he can't tell. Later that day, this man, Chapman, heads to a liquor store to restock his solitary supply. As he browses the aisles, the scene erupts. 2 armed, jumpy robbers storm in, shouting threats. While other customers cower, Chapman's reaction is unnervingly calm. He steps directly into their line of fire, his voice flat. "Don't aim for the stomach," he advises, as if giving tactical instruction. "It's a slow, messy way to go." He then grips the barrel of the nearest gun, steering it toward his own chest or head, daring the shaken gunman to make a cleaner shot. In that split second of hesitation, Chapman moves. It's a brutal, efficient blur of motion. One robber is disarmed and incapacitated, then the other. But as they slump to the floor, Chapman isn't in the store anymore. The violence has ripped open a door in his mind, and the memories of war come flooding back in a deafening, visceral torrent, drowning him in their weight. That night, sleep is a battleground he loses. Flashbacks hit with the force of a mortar blast. He tries to outrun them with a punishing, pre-dawn training regimen, pounding a heavy bag until his shoulders scream, but the ghosts cling tight. Frustration turns to rage, and he drives his fists into a concrete wall until his knuckles are a bloody, raw mess. Morning finds him passed out in a chair, an empty bottle at his feet. He is jolted awake not by memory, but by furious pounding on his door. It's his sister, Cindy, the sister he was supposed to pick up from the airport yesterday. She takes in his disheveled state, the blood on his hands, with a weary resignation, not shock. She explains she's only in town briefly for a friend's wedding before returning to Brazil, where she works for a charity in dangerous favelas. Chapman hates the idea, but arguing with Cindy is like arguing with the tide. Before she leaves, she checks his prescription bottles, the medication meant to keep the demons at bay. They're full of breath mints. She shakes her head, a silent lecture, and departs. For a time, there is an uneasy quiet. Then the world fractures. On a sun-drenched beach in Rio de Janeiro, 2 Brazilian federal police agents, Catarina and Paulo, find Cindy brutally assaulted, clinging to life. The news involving an American aid worker rockets through channels, reaching the U.S. Embassy and finally Chapman. He doesn't pack a bag, he just goes. On the first flight to Rio, a storm brews inside him. Meanwhile, in the labyrinthine favelas, Detective Tiago Santo and his hulking partner, Carlo Baroro, are conducting a raid, a term that barely covers their brutal methods. They are interrupted by Catarina and Paulo, who are following a separate lead connected to Cindy's attack. Catarina, idealistic and by the book, openly condemns Santo's extralegal violence and for operating outside his jurisdiction. Santo, a man carved from cynicism, doesn't defend himself. He attacks. He blames her soft approach for the crime that flourishes, crime that nearly killed an American. His tirade is cut short by a rock striking his back. The favela tightens around them, a coiled spring of hostility. Guns are gripped on both sides. To defuse the imminent bloodbath, Santo proposes a contest. His man Baroro against the locals' best capoeira fighter. If Baroro loses, they leave. The fight is short and devastating. The massive cop moves with shocking agility, ending the match with a single crushing blow. Santo laughs, a sound devoid of warmth, and announces they will return whenever they please. The hatred in the locals' eyes is a tangible force as he departs. Chapman lands in a world of oppressive heat and blurred lines. He is met by U.S. Ambassador Manny Ridley, a fellow veteran and an old friend whose diplomatic polish can't hide shared scars. Together, they go to the hospital. Seeing Cindy, pale, silent, trapped in a coma, unleashes the past in full, horrifying color. Visions of desert sands stained red, fallen comrades, and the hollow silence after combat overwhelm him. Before he can steady himself, Santo enters. Manny introduces him as the lead detective, urging Chapman to let the professionals work. Santo's message is clear and chilling. The favelas are not for tourists. As they drive to the crime scene, the two men exchange bleak philosophies. Santo sees the favela children as future criminals in a cycle he claims to understand. Chapman simply sees another war zone, another front in a perpetual conflict. They find grim common ground. The world is a meat grinder. In the favela, Chapman meets Katerina again. As she begins to explain the complex social dynamics, how drug lords fund the clinics and schools the government abandoned, creating a perverse loyalty. A loud bang echoes. Chapman's combat reflexes are faster than thought. In a flash, he has disarmed Katerina, her service pistol now in his hand, aimed at the source of the noise. It was just a backfiring truck. Santo watches this display with cold, calculating interest and quietly orders Katerina to babysit their volatile guest. Back at the hospital, Chapman keeps a silent vigil. His moment of inattention is nearly fatal. A woman disguised as a doctor had been in the room minutes before. Now, Cindy's life support machines are ominously silent, their plugs pulled. Someone tried to finish the job. A cold fury settles over Chapman. He demands round-the-clock police protection for his sister, a demand that is grudgingly met. Then he goes hunting. He tracks down a street kid named Kuka, whom he'd seen near the beach. The sight of Cindy's distinctive necklace around the boy's neck ignites his rage. He seizes Kuka, demanding answers in a language the boy doesn't understand. Kuka's friends swarm, but they are children facing a seasoned Marine. The scuffle is brutally one-sided. Desperate, Kuka pulls a knife. Chapman disarms him in emotion, turning the blade toward the boy. The standoff is broken by Katerina's arrival. She explains, her voice urgent, that Cindy was close to Kuka's family. His sister, Maria, is also missing. The necklace wasn't loot. It was a gift, a token of friendship. The fury drains from Chapman, replaced by a sharp, clarifying focus. Kuka, seeing the change, hands over Cindy's journal. Many pages have been torn out. From the remaining notes, Chapman finds a contact, a photographer. He arranges a meeting. The photographer reveals Cindy was documenting the lives of favela children, but her real project was darker, tracking the disappearances of young girls from the streets. He believes this is what marked her. She had him secretly photograph a meeting with an informant but took all the photos herself. As they part, Chapman embraces the man. A move that allows him to deftly steal a flash drive from the photographer's pocket. Moments later, as the photographer reaches his car, it explodes in a fireball, killing him instantly and wounding bystanders. The shockwave triggers another flashback for Chapman, but through the chaos, he spots a familiar face. The woman from the hospital. He gives chase. The pursuit leads him into an ambush. A black SUV screeches around a corner, gunmen with automatic weapons unleashing a hail of bullets. Chapman dives for cover. A nearby security guard is cut down. Chapman grabs the fallen man's pistol and returns fire with lethal precision, driving the attackers back. In Ridley's office, Chapman analyzes the attack. He describes the attacker's distinctive tattoos, Yakuza. The woman, too, had East Asian features. They examine the contents of the stolen flash drive. One photo is key. Cindy captured a man, later identified as Lima, outside a notorious nightclub. Ridley knows the place. That night, Chapman infiltrates the club, a gaudy den of vice. He tracks Lima to the restroom and, in a violent, silent confrontation, extracts an address, a lavish villa belonging to a high-profile client. Meanwhile, Santo prepares his squad for another favela raid. His briefing is chillingly succinct. No prisoners. He kneels, mutters a prayer not for mercy but for strength, and unleashes his men. What follows is not police work. It's an execution. At the villa, a fortress of wealth overlooking the city's poverty, Chapman's arrival is noted. A guard calls upstairs to report the American's presence to an elegant, ruthless Asian woman counting stacks of cash. She barely glances up, instructing them not to disturb the boss, Hiramoto. Chapman is led to a balcony. Looking down, he sees a van arrive. Its doors open, and a group of disoriented young girls are ushered out. Among them is Maria, Kuka's sister. Before Chapman can act, a garrote wire slices toward his throat from behind. He fights back with savage efficiency, breaking the guard's hold and knocking him unconscious. Slipping into the shadows, he follows, witnessing the operation's scale. It's a Yakuza stronghold. Back in the favela, Santo's massacre is interrupted. One of his junior officers, showing a shred of conscience, tries to stop a group of Yakuza in suits from loading children into a vehicle. Santo praises the officer's vigilance. Then, with cold detachment, shoots him dead. The Yakuza are waved on. Santo then makes a call. The woman from the villa assures him his payment is ready at the port. She then calls Hiramoto. The American is a problem, she says. It's time to remove him. As she speaks, Lima stands before Hiramoto, trembling. His failure, letting his documents be stolen, is unforgivable. Hiramoto's response is a single, fluid motion of his samurai sword. Chapman, moving through the villa's underbelly, is discovered. He fights 5 Yakuza guards in a frenzied ballet of violence, using a stolen briefcase as an improvised weapon. Just as he gains the upper hand, Santo and Baroro arrive, guns drawn, demanding the briefcase. The standoff is broken by the arrival of Katerina and Paolo, responding to the gunfire. Forced into a charade of cooperation, Santo follows as Chapman leads them to the room where the girls were held. It's empty, scrubbed clean. Frustrated, Chapman hands over the briefcase, its contents linking the Yakuza to human trafficking, to Santo for official processing. It's only as he turns to leave that the critical flaw hits him. He never mentioned Lima's name to Santo. Santo already knew. The detective is corrupt, part of the machine. He whispers to Katerina to get to the hospital and protect Cindy, then slips into the shadows to follow Santo. Hidden in the detective's car, he is taken to the port. There, under the glare of industrial lights, he watches Santo meet with Yakuza associates as kidnapped children are marched into a warehouse. Cargo for a ship bound for Japan. Chapman calls Ridley with the proof. His friend pleads with him to wait for backup. Chapman hangs up. What follows is a one-man war. Using every skill from his forgotten military life, Chapman becomes a ghost in the machinery of the port, eliminating guards with silent, brutal efficiency. He is turning the tide when he comes face to face with Santo. Their confrontation is a raw exchange of gunfire and hatred, ending with Chapman using a forklift to pin Santo, crushing his leg. As he moves for the kill, Baroro attacks from the darkness, a whirlwind of capoeira fury. Chapman fights back with economical, devastating force. Santo frees himself and joins the fray. Even 2 against 1, they are hard-pressed to subdue him. Then Hiramoto arrives, his katana catching the low light. The Yakuza lord is a master, his blade a silver flash that cuts Chapman's arm, driving him back. Cornered and bleeding, Chapman faces 3 enemies. Santo lunges with a knife. Chapman redirects the thrust into Baroro's thigh. A following punch knocks Santo senseless. Chapman then tears the heavy chain from Santo's neck and rams it into the detective's chest. Santo's eyes widen in final understanding. Now it is Chapman and Hiramoto. Chapman grabs 2 steel pipes, using them to parry the singing katana. He locks the blade, twisting it toward Hiramoto's own throat. In a last trick, a hidden blade springs from the sword's hilt, stabbing Chapman in the abdomen. The pain is white-hot, but it unleashes a final, berserk strength. Chapman ignores the wound, his fists becoming pile drivers that pound Hiramoto's skull until the crime lord drops. Gasping, Chapman turns to see Santo, dying, toss him a key. It opens a port locker containing detailed records, names, dates, payments, implicating a network of corrupt officials, police, and judges. I did many terrible things, Santo rasps, his life bleeding into the concrete. But your sister wasn't one of them. As the light leaves Santo's eyes, Hiramoto stirs, reaching for his sword. Chapman empties his pistol into him. He places a gun gently beside Santo's body, a warrior's last salute, and staggers away. Ridley and the real authorities arrive in the aftermath. Chapman personally opens the warehouse doors, freeing the terrified children. Cindy survives, but the road to recovery will be long and costly. In Ridley's office, the ambassador makes an offer. The U.S. will cover everything, all medical expenses, on one condition. Chapman must come work for him. Not as a soldier, but as something else, an off-the-books operative, a deniable asset. Ridley doesn't wait for an answer. He already knows it. He slides a new passport across the desk. The name is different. The identity is new. But the call sign, etched in memory and pain, remains the same. Falcon.